I've seen a lot of next-gen updates, times where a studio decides to create a big patch for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X that kind of improves the frame rate or the resolution or cuts down on load times, but this feels different. The next-gen update for The Witcher 3 actually introduces hundreds of tiny changes to the character models, to the animations. It fixes a bunch of glitches that have been in the game for almost a decade. And more than that, it includes completely new content, which I want to talk about. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. So this weekend, I was stuck in bed very sick. And during that time, I was playing this nonstop on my PlayStation 5. Now, I want to talk about this in two separate chunks. Let's talk about the visuals and the things that have drastically been improved, and separately talk about the gameplay changes, including the additional quests and tons of secret armor that are now hidden throughout the game. I mean, even I wasn't able to find all of them during my time. When it comes to this visual upgrade, the biggest difference that you can't help but enjoy is these newly designed ray tracing elements. Now, what that basically means, in case you haven't experienced the glory of ray tracing, is this is hyper-realistic lighting simulations, meaning that when water is there, it's not only glistening more appropriately, but a building can actually be reflected upon it. Even things like Geralt's sword now properly reflects. Magic and stuff creates more accurate lighting on environments. The ray tracing in this game, especially for stuff like fog and shadows when you're going through particular dungeons, is jaw-dropping. Now, these incredibly good visuals do unfortunately come at the cost of frame rate. If you want to play this in ray tracing mode, it only runs at 30 frames a second on both the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Now, a bunch of games have this, where if you turn it on, basically you're getting better looks, but it costs you a couple frames. Personally, I played 99% of my time at the newly introduced 60 frames a second mode because, honestly, even with these great visuals, I think it looks better and smoother, especially with the combat changes, having a chance to see this at the highest frame rate possible. Perhaps the most interesting aspect of this entire overhaul that we got to the game itself is the inclusion of fan-created content. Apparently, CD Projekt Red found out that modders had completely fixed some lingering problems in the original version of The Witcher 3, and people loved these mods so much they officially put them in the game. They paid these modders for their works, so it actually fixed things like a bunch of the glitches that existed on the map. There's weird times where there'd be certain 3D objects that didn't quite render properly in particular environments. There's even been stuff like, honestly, some parts of certain monsters were not rendered and upscaled properly. Everybody, because of these tweaks, everything looks better. And what's extra cool is that once they did these changes using these mods and support, CD Projekt Red's developers decided to make some changes of their own, doing things like they've basically removed fall damage so you can fall a lot further, which to me honestly makes the game a lot more playable. I like the fact that I can just jump on top of stuff and slide down mountains without suddenly just triggering an instant death. They've made it so that now whenever you loot herbs, it's instantaneous. They've made it so that whenever you want to walk using the controller, there's actually different walk speeds now. So it makes it a lot simpler if you're trying to sneak up on somebody to fire that deadly arrow, or you're just walking next to a quest giver or something like that. It's a lot more of a fluid experience. But that's not all. There are so many tiny changes to improve the character models so everybody looks way better. Like, everybody obviously looks like a next-gen character. They've introduced a photo mode so you can just straight up take these glorious pictures and make good clickbait thumbnails like I like to do. I'm blown away by the fact that they have overhauled so many parts of this, but that's not the best part. In my opinion, the best stuff is the completely added content, some of which we don't even know about. So I got a chance to look at CD Projekt Red's patch notes, and they straight up said, you know what? We're going to be vague. We have changed so much stuff. A lot of it we just want you to discover for yourself. And I've been doing that all freaking weekend. Things like I've noticed that now whenever you're riding your horse through like a creek, Roach automatically raises his head. He doesn't just sit there nose down directly in the deep. I've noticed when I'm turning the camera or trying to go through tinier areas like dungeons and stuff, the camera is honestly not as jittery. Everything feels much more, well, responsive. But they've also completely added a new camera mode where the camera is much closer to you and makes it so that when you lock onto targets, it almost does this over-the-shoulder style combat, very similar to Ghost of Tsushima. Now, to me, this makes combat, even against weak bandits and stuff, feel so much more personable because it ends up clicking against target to target. And when you're trying to parry and dodge and use your fire signs and stuff, it's freaking awesome to have this more energetic vibe. Now, this can be toggled off. A lot of these options can be toggled on and off. I mean, the graphics stuff seems to be permanently stuck on, but I don't know why you would want bad graphics. They've even done other small stuff like you can now quick swap directly between your different magical signs. If you're trying to do stuff, sign casting has a quick swap. This makes it so you don't have to manually open up the entire freaking menu every time you want to switch between two separate, often used signs. It's cool that magic and combat has just been streamlined so much. Now let's discuss the completely new stuff, the things that did not exist in any of the DLC or any of the previous patches, which includes a newly made Netflix quest, where basically it ties it together closer to some of the events of the TV show, and it gives you a set of armor that obviously Henry Cavill wore in the show. It also gives you new swords. It's very cool. The quest itself is only about 30 minutes long. It's basically in the starting zone. You have to be about level 15 to actually do the quest. I was level 30, so I pretty much one shot at the boss at the end of it. But it gives you a very cool conversation that I don't want to spoil, but it's with a guy who used to be a Witcher. It's very cool to see this different piece of lore kind of expanding the existing universe. And then once that's done, you can craft some extremely good old school Witcher armor. All of it looks fantastic. But again, this reminds me of the fact that the developers have been vague about how you unlock some of these new gears and how you craft this new stuff. There is armor like this. I have not been able to find this yet. It's in the trailer. It looks freaking awesome. I can't figure that out. But to me, that is so freaking fun. I mean, sometimes the best moments in all of video games are when people are still trying to figure out the nitty gritty, when people are trying to master all the different systems and trying to find stuff before there are guides. This truly is the best time to play The Witcher 3. Is that if you're ever actually sitting there and you're going, okay, I haven't played it yet. Now is the time, especially if you have the PlayStation 5. They've integrated a bunch of haptic feedback stuff so that when you're riding the horse or casting your signs or just beating people up, everything about this feels like you can actually feel it in the triggers. The game is just better than it's ever been, and this is still objectively one of the greatest games of all time. My best friend Nick, it's like a guy I grew up with. One time, he and I were sitting around playing Final Fantasy VII, and he randomly said something that I'm never going to forget. He said, "The Witcher 3 is the best game ever made. It's not my favorite game, but it's objectively the best game ever made." And I think about that because honestly, this game is that great. It's won so many awards. Even its DLC on its own won Role-Playing Game of the Year at one point. So the fact that now in 2022, we got a little tiny sliver of additional surprises in it, it gets me very excited about the future of CD Projekt Red. It gets me hyped for that next-gen remake we're getting of the original Witcher and the new DLC for Cyberpunk 2077 called Phantom Liberty. This is an interesting taste. And also, of course, it's free. If you own The Witcher, you gotta install this. You gotta see it for yourself. But are you excited for it? Are you going to be trying this out? Let me know in the comments down below. And please, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. Oh, God. My poor voice. I'm so sorry if this video is not as good as I can't talk very well right now. There might be tinier videos for the next couple days or no videos for the next couple days because I need to rest my vocal cords.